Uncinetto. I'm Christina, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. If you're new, welcome in. If you're returning, welcome back. No matter how long you've been here, I always appreciate your time. I'm so excited to be able to bring you today a wonderful trip that I took with MWR, which is an organization on base that basically takes you different places around your local area. So if you're on base and you have some version of this, it may not be exactly the same, but they have like scheduled trips that you can sign up for, and they'll take you to these different places, kind of culturally relevant to wherever you are. So I had originally signed up for this trip with Sparkle because my son was supposed to be going on a hike. They had a hike, I might say it incorrectly, the Peloriton mountains, and that's where part of The Godfather was filmed. And my son really wanted to go. He loves to hike. He loves nature. Unfortunately, I can't do a ton of it. Definitely can't do hikes anymore. My body just is too broken. It's too broken. I have to wear special socks and special shoes, and it is. I could maybe do an hour, maybe two, and then I would finish it, but I would pay for it. And no amount of. Anyway, I've had a lot of things going on with my ankle. That's not why you're here. So, but anyway, he had originally had a hike to go on, and I got a call on the Friday before that the hike was canceled because there weren't enough people signed up, which is ridiculous. But I was like, okay, well, let me, because I was at home, and I was like, let me call my son and let him know. And Sparkle was there, and I was like, let me see if she still wants to go do this thing, because if she doesn't, then we can just have a Saturday at the house and I can get refunded, because they're not super expensive. But I mean, I had paid for two different things, one for him and then one for the two of us, because I was like, well, if I have to drive all the way down to base, I might as well go do something myself. So anyway, she still wanted to go because, well, you'll see why in a minute. But I was like, okay, well, we'll go. It'll just be a girls' day. It'll be fine. And we got up and went. And along the way, the tour guide gave us a lot of information, which hopefully I'm going to be able to share some of it with you. I can't share all of it with you while I remember it all. It would be a really long video because it was a 2-hour drive there. And as we were passing things, she was sharing. I didn't take pictures of all of those things. And then once we got there, obviously, she was sharing about all sorts of things. So I was really blessed to be able to go on this trip and now be able to share it with you all. And please let me know if these are things that you don't really want to see. I like doing these videos, but they're not honestly getting a ton of views, and by a ton, I mean some of them aren't even getting like 20. Because when I do this, like I'm doing the video now, and in a little bit as I'm talking, there'll be pictures popping up. That does take time, and it takes a lot of time because I take a lot of pictures. I mean, even if I wasn't doing it for the channel, like my kids do not like it when I pull out my camera, my phone, because they know, like, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna take pictures, because my pop took a lot of pictures also, and I guess I got that from him being places with him growing up. He always took a lot of pictures, and he would have albums full and full and full. But that's how I learned about my family, because they weren't alive when I was around. Like, oof, all of the people. Where did that come from? There it is. Nope. It's somewhere. Here we go. The people from Italy, you know, extended family, all of that. Like, his parents, my grandmother's parents, I didn't know them. They weren't alive. I mean, my beast nonna was, but I mean, that was it. I only knew her as an old lady with white hair and glasses who yelled at me in Italian. It wasn't like mean, but like she couldn't hear very well, so she was loud, and that's all I knew, right? But like to see her and see my grandfather when he was little, my grandmother when she was like, ah, come on, like I love it. And my kids may not feel the same, but I want to be able to have these memories, even though they're digital, you know, to have them uploaded and be there, and you know, so I take a lot of pictures in general. But if you guys don't want to see them, I mean, obviously you don't have to watch, but you know, it does take quite a bit of time, and I can just keep those memories if it's not something that people are interested in. I don't want to do, someone has suggested doing a separate channel. I don't want to do that because I don't even have enough people on this channel. One channel takes up a lot of energy. 2 channels would be way too much. I really feel like I have to sneeze. I'm sorry. I didn't sneeze. You would have heard it if I sneezed, but man, that hurt. So if this is not something that is going to be sustainable, then I can just not. But I know the people that do comment are very excited to see the things. But you know, I don't want to do a lot of this if people aren't going to be interested in it. So just let me know in the comments below if it's something you want me to continue when I do go places, because I don't go places just to show you all. I go places and then I share it with you. So if, like I said, just let me know. I could go on and on and on. I'm not gonna do that because that's not why you're here. If you're here to see the things. So we went to, it was a 2-hour bus ride, but it was to kind of the same area, well, was the same area where I went to for the chocolate, if you watched that video. So there are seven sections, let me look that up real quick while I'm talking, of Sicily, and there are, I live in, they're like provinces, but I think that's what they're called. Sorry. Yes, there are 9, excuse me. I knew, I was like, 7 sounds wrong. There are 9 provinces. I live in the Catania province, and we went to the Ragusa province. So Ragusa is the smallest province, and I'll try to pop up a map here just so you can see. But Modica, where I went for the chocolate, is in the Ragusa province. So, but they're kind of like you think of them like counties in a state, right? And there are a total of 110 provinces. I just looked it up. There are 110 provinces in Italy, and there are 20 regions. And Sicily is considered a region of Italy, and then you have the provinces within that. So it's kind of like having, right, the states in the United States, and then the counties or parishes, depending on what state you're in, right? Parish, it's very Louisiana, but it's just the different areas. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're not getting up there. Sorry, Nero was trying to jump on something, and there's breakable things, and that's a no, sir. I'm taking another sip of coffee, excuse me. It might be for the first sip for this video, but I've been recording, batch recording, so I have my pictures pulled up just so that I can kind of talk to you about them as we go through. But we did go to the Ragusa province, and this province is a little bit more rural than the Catania province, and you'll see some pictures of that. It's also, like I said, the smallest province in Sicily, and per capita, it's the richest. The tour guide did say that could be because of the size, but also, if you remember from the chocolate video, there was a noble, like a wealthy family at the time who lived in Modica, Modica, and that kind of bled over into Ragusa once they combined it all. So this was during the time of the Spanish. There was a count named Cabrera, and he was the one who kept the chocolate going in Modica. And then Martin the First of Spain was the king who was in Sicily, but he was Spanish. And then his bride, Queen Bianca Neva, was there, and when he passed away, the count did all sorts of things, which we'll get into in a moment. But while the king was alive, the king of Sicily was alive, he gave this count a lot of land in this area. Modica, the Ragusa province, Modica specifically was one of them. That's why Modica was its own county for a long time. And then in 1693, there was a huge earthquake. And the town that we went to, Ragusa, was, and you'll see in some of the pictures, there's like Lower Ragusa and then Upper Ragusa. So the Lower Ragusa, which is where we went, is called Ragusa Ibla now, but in 1693 it was just Ragusa. But when the earthquake happened, a lot of the townspeople who survived were very scared, so they moved up onto the hill and called that Ragusa as well. And the original settlers of the area had a polytheistic society, so they had multiple gods and goddesses that they believed in. One of them was Ibla, and in like the early 1700s, they wanted kind of a distinction between Upper and Lower Ragusa, so they asked if they could be called Ragusa Ibla to honor the original settlers of the area, and then make kind of a distinction of their area, the original, right? Um, Ragusa. Now it's all one city because Mussolini was the one who divided the regions and the provinces, and he was like, there's no sense in having all of this with Modica and Ragusa Ibla and Ragusa and all of this. Like, there's too many counties, like regions, autonomous areas. So he made them all into one smaller region. Uh, but by doing that, because they were already wealthy areas, that kind of pushed right that wealth together, which makes that area a little bit more wealthy. But the first place that we stopped was the remains of a church in Ragusa Ibla, and it is. Hold on, just one moment. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, it was just a second for you, but my nose was awful, and then I had to get Nero off of the table over by the door before he broke something. So, Saint George was the patron saint of Ragusa at the time, and now that when it separated into two, right, there were two separate ones, and so now Ragusa as a town has two saints. Most towns in Italy only have one patron saint, but this one has two because of the separation, and they had to get it approved and all of that. But this was the one of the original churches in Ragusa Ibla, and it was to honor St. George, and there are lots of stories about him riding in on a white horse, killing the dragon, saving the princess, and there's some truth in there somewhere. As legends often go, legends are often based in history. Somewhere there's some part of it that's true, right? Maybe not all of it, and not all of it at the same time, but there you have it. The next thing that we saw was a garden. It's a public garden. It was so beautiful, and there was another church in there. And while we were in the garden, one of the things that we were told is that during the time that Ragusa Superiore, or like Upper Ragusa, was being like formed, there were a lot of like fiefdoms that were being created, because one of the things that King Martin did with the Count is gave him all of this land. Well, he couldn't take care of it, so he parceled it out to different people who had to pay him like 10% of their land earnings. And in order to gain status, a lot of these families who were working these land areas, and they were big, like it wasn't like a small like little plot of land, they would hire workers and then to establish themselves as what would eventually become the bourgeoisie, right? The middle class they would build a church in honor of their family, right? So they would have that built. So there were like, I'm so sorry, hold on. Nero is not listening today. They would have that, and there would be a lot of churches in honor of this family, or dedicated to this and that and whatever. And so that gave them the ability to establish themselves. And then there was a time where some of the people who had titles had to sell them because they didn't have the money. And this bourgeoisie class was able to then purchase the title, right? And they could have it now that they had the status in the town as having dedicated the church and donated all of this money to the town and all that. So there were a lot of churches in this area. And when the earthquake happened in 1693, a lot of architects were brought in to rebuild, but they didn't use like the marble and all of the expensive things. They used sandstone and limestone that were quarried from the area. Ragusa is known for its like white stone. Sorry, take another sip of coffee. Hold on, I'm so sorry. Okay, so Ragusa is known for its stone. Like here near Mount Etna, they're known for their lava stone. It tends to be, you know, the very black or gray stones. They're the white or like cream colored stones. And the architects kept the late Baroque architecture, but used the stones of the area in order to get the buildings up so that people would have their churches and their shops and things like that. So that's part of why there's a lot of that there. And if there were drawings or things like that of the area prior, they would be described as being in marble and all of that because they were built with that originally, but now they're not. So we did walk to the Duomo, which is the main square of the town. That's usually where the biggest church is in any town here in Sicily. So it's going to be basically the biggest church, where the patron saint would be. The church is usually named after the patron saint, and so is the square, typically. So we walked up, and you'll see some pictures while we're walking. Sorry, I'm looking at the pictures while I'm gonna get really close to the camera while I'm doing this so that I can talk to you all about them. And then the main church, I did not get pictures of myself, so I can't really talk about the inside of it when I get there, but because I couldn't walk up all those steps after having done Modica, and it was a lot. So I had someone send me pictures so that I would have them, and there was also a wedding going on inside there, so there wasn't a lot that we could see. But one of the other smaller churches that we went to is, let me pull it up. Hold on. I'm sorry. So many pauses. All right, so this one is the Church of Saint Joseph, and it is a smaller church than the one in the main square, the piazza. But it is very ornate on the inside. So I did get to go inside this church, and you'll see pictures of that. And it is small, but it is very beautiful. And while we were there, there were nuns there who, this particular church, there were Benedictine nuns, so they're like an older group of nuns. Not, I mean, they are older in age, but also like an older order, and they recite 24/7. There's someone reciting prayers there, and on the windows you'll see there's like this wrought iron outward curve and that so that the nuns could look out and not be seen, but they could still um, be a part of the world, so to speak, is what we were told. And then we were walking up to the church. You can see there was a lot of cars and things, which there's not usually. Oh my goodness, I think I'm allergic to something. Something has gotten somewhere because I am overwhelmed right now. My nose is going crazy, and so is my eye. But normally we were told that there's not a lot of driving allowed in that area because it is a pedestrian area. Ragusa Ibla is mostly a pedestrian area. So unless you live there and have a special permit, or if you have business there, but even the bus, like they had to take us to a certain spot and stop, and they couldn't drive around, which was fine, because you see a lot more when you're walking around. You don't see as many things, but you see a lot more detail. But the church was open. The main church that we went to, the front door was open, which it only happens Easter, Christmas, and for weddings. And we couldn't, of course, go in that door. You had to enter into a side door, which I didn't enter, but I will show pictures of that as well. It's very beautiful inside, but it was over 100 steps to get up there, and I knew that we were going to be walking for the rest of the day. I was already starting to hurt, so I was like, I'm gonna just, we went and got ice cream, to be honest. We went and got ice cream, Sparkle and I, because after that church, we were on our own and we could like venture for about 45 minutes. So we just went a little earlier and did a couple of sightseeing things, got some souvenirs, and it's really itching, you guys. Yeah, the ice cream that we got was from a place called Divini Gelati, which is divine ice cream, and they had some really interesting flavors. They had like violet and jasmine and saffron and rose, and of course Sparkle got rose and violet because it's pink and purple, and she actually really liked it. I got jasmine ice cream, which was delicious. So yeah, that's what we did, and then we got some souvenirs. I got something for my son, a little bookmark. I got a magnet, of course. I got some postcards that somebody may be getting in the mail at some point. I'm trying to collect them from different areas and then send them out to people. And yeah, so there was that. And then there's some more pictures that will pop up of the ravine that separates Ragusa Ibla from Ragusa Superiore. And then you'll see where we went to a castle. It's called Donnafugata, and it's all one word. It's not the same. There's apparently, and I don't drink a lot of wine, so I knew that I've seen like the pictures, like the bottles of wine, a Donnafugata wine, but that's in a different part of Sicily. So, because two separate words. This is all one word, Donnafugata Castle. And we went there after lunch. There's a eatery right there next to the castle, and that was part of the tour when we paid. We paid for our food and all of that. And I'll be happy to post the food in my Facebook group or my community tab if anybody's interested. I'm not going to put it in here. Not everybody likes seeing pictures of food. But there were some other kids on the tour, and it was funny because Sparkle is I mean, she's not necessarily an adventurous eater, but she has a pretty decent palate. And I was just like, no, just give her the normal. She doesn't need a kid's plate. Just give her the normal plate. Because if she didn't like it, then I would pay for the kid's plate, or I would find something that she liked in what we were eating and give her all of mine. Like, I didn't care. But the way that Italian meals work is you have multiple courses. So you don't just get a plate of food. That's not how it works. It's an experience. So you have your appetizer, right? Or your antipasto, and they came out with a platter. Everybody got their own individual little. I mean, it was a plate, but it was a platter of different things to try. And the other kids got like, well, they didn't even get that. They just had bread on the table. And then, but they had like salami and cheeses and olives and ricotta. That's another thing. Ragusa is really known for their ricotta cheese, which was really interesting for us to get because normally it's too hot at this point for ricotta. So we were lucky enough to be able to try it. It was delicious. But then the next dish was a pasta dish, and the kids' plate was just penne pasta with some sauce on it. But the other one was like ravioli. It was like different kinds of pasta, and I was so glad that Sparkle, I mean, I chose that for her. She didn't know that she was getting that, but like the other kids were looking at her plate and they were like, "Mama, we want that," or "Daddy, we want that," and they were like, "Well, too late now." And then when the meat dish came out, because so you get the antipasto, then you get a pasta dish, and then you get a meat dish, and then you get dessert. So it's 4 courses. When the meat came out, oh man, it was so good. But they got like this breaded chicken cutlet and french fries, and it was so bland. The kids were like, "This doesn't taste like anything," and blah, blah, blah. Gwendolyn was happily eating her sausage. It was, I don't know. I was just really glad that she, one, is open to trying it, and two, that I mean, she ate really well. And then for dessert, we had like a tray of cannoli for the table. So you each got 1 cannolo. So it's not cannoli, it's 1. It's cannolo, apparently. I learned, because my grandparents always called it cannoli. But anyway, if you're interested in that, let me know, and I'll put it on my community tab. I'll put it in my Facebook group. But then we went into the castle, and there were pictures of different rooms. And it was interesting because, of course, the bottom floor was like the servants' quarters, which we didn't get to go into necessarily, but they had the big open courtyard that you would read about, right? And then you had different rooms, which of course they were blocked off. We couldn't go into them. And you go upstairs to like the noble quarters, and it's literally like you would walk through people's rooms to get to things. It was almost like a shotgun house, where it's like straight back and you walk through everything, where there's not like hallways or anything like that. Like it was just all one big corridor that you walked around. And there was a music room, and there was a smoking room, and a ladies' room. I don't remember what they called it. But to get to those things, you had to walk through people's bedrooms, which I thought was interesting, because the books don't describe it that way. But anyway, There was some really great things that were there. You can also see where there is some damage that needs to be repaired. It is very humid here, so mold grows very quickly if you don't take care of it. And one of the interesting things that they told us here was when they came in, all of the furniture is original to the late 17, early 1800s. Like around 1820-ish is when some of them have been dated. But, so they may have been made, but they were brought to the house around 1820. And then the curtains are all new. The chandeliers are all new. However, with pictures and descriptions, the company has tried to match them as closely as they could, especially the chandeliers. And any room that has wallpaper, at the time, in like the 1800s, the curtains would match the wallpaper. So the company did the best that they could to match the wallpaper to the curtains, even though the curtains are a bit newer. I'm sorry, hold on just 1 second. Okay, and then I did take pictures of some of the ceilings, and there's one room in the music room where they use this technique that's almost like a 3D painting, to where, I mean, it still looks like it's brand new. I mean, it may have been, you know, touched up. I don't know. I really don't know. I know they try to preserve as much as they can. I mean, you can look and see some of the ceilings. But it was kind of roped off where you couldn't like touch things, and they roped it off where you went in a specific direction. But it was really lovely. It was smaller than I thought it would be, but then we went out into the gardens, and I did have Sparkle go up the steps around the side to take some pictures, because there were 2 towers that you could walk up and take pictures, and so she walked up those and took some pictures, and then she walked around because it was more stairs, and it was the end of the day, and I literally was getting to the point where I couldn't, stairs were not going to happen. And I knew we had a 2-hour ride home, plus then once we got back to base, I had to drive home. So it's part of the reason why I like doing some of these trips, is because putting my foot on the gas and going, especially if it's a longer road trip, my ankle, doing all of that gas and brake and whatever, my foot just says no. So, but she did take some great pictures, and the gardens were lovely. I mean, I think the gardens were bigger than the house. I mean, there were more areas to see, more things to do, and unfortunately we didn't really have a lot of time to explore the gardens, which was sad. But one of the things that I do want to share is that, if you remember, when I first got to Sicily, I was in a town called Moda St. Anastasia, Moda for short, and there was a castle, and I did a video there. The queen, who put the man in the cistern, right, because he wouldn't listen, is the same queen from the castle here in Ragusa. And it said that the count locked her in her bedroom because he refused to marry her, and she ran away to a different place. I don't know if that was before or after the incident in Moda. I don't even know how much of it is fact, right? But it's the same queen. So I thought that was very interesting to make that connection, not only between places that I've been, but stories that I'm sharing with you all. And that was was it. We rounded out the trip walking back to the bus. There was a little, it was like a snack shop. And so we got granita, which is kind of like, I don't know, I would liken it to like a melted popsicle. It's not ice cream, and it's not really like a snow cone. It's like a melted popsicle kind of texture. So it's like kind of mushy, um, but very flavorful and very refreshing. So we got one of those each before we got on the bus, and then we went home. So I know this has been a little bit longer video. I hope that you've enjoyed the pictures, and please let me know if you like things like this, if you want me to continue doing things like this. I love sharing it with you, but it is work, and if it's not something that a lot of people are interested in, then I will just keep the memories for myself, right? And maybe put some pictures in my Facebook group. But I do enjoy sharing them with you, so I hope that you enjoy listening and seeing. So that's all for now. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you again very soon. Be the change you wish to see in the world, everyone. Ciao bella!